Hello, I am Juan-Juan, your Six Sigma instructor, and today we're going to discuss one of the most useful tools for problem solving, the 8D. This methodology is also known as the 8 disciplines. Oh, and by the way, in case you haven't noticed, today we are in Rome, Italy, actually in front of the famous Trevi Fountain, also known as La Fontana de Trevi.
Juan-Juan, before we start, can I ask you a question?
Sí,
You speak Spanish, right?
sí, yo hablo español.
What about French?
Mais oui, je parle français, mais non couramment.
What about Italian, since you're in Italy?
Sì, io parlo italiano perché è una lingua simile allo spagnolo.
What about American English?
Well, I speak English, but with a southern accent.
Are you from the South?
Sí, south of the border. Anyhow, let's talk about ADs from Italy. Welcome back. The AD methodology has two origins. The first is the military standard 1520, named Corrective Action and Disposition System for Non-Conforming Material, which in section 572 talks about the documentation needed for the corrective action, and this includes root cause analysis, documenting corrective actions, and identifying a cross-functional team, among other requirements. By the way, this military standard is no longer active. And the second origin of the AD is the Ford Motor Company manual titled Oriented Problem Solving, or TOPS, published in 1987. This manual describes the original 8 steps or 8 disciplines for problem solving, hence the name AD. Ford later added another step, D0, for planning. So, in reality, there are 9 Ds instead of 8 Ds. Anyhow, let's review them one by one. Now we are in Plaza del Popolo in Rome. It is very common to document an AD using a form. During this video, we are going to follow the standard steps, but the form that you may be using may require additional or different information. As mentioned before, Ford added D0 for planning. In this step, we are going to determine if indeed a full AD methodology is needed to resolve the issue, and this usually happens when we need to investigate a root cause. Also, during the planning, it is important to determine how urgent the problem is. Usually, ADs are limited to a certain time, 24 hours sometimes. Sometimes you need to respond in 2 hours to avoid a lying down situation. After you have completed this basic planning, the next step is D1, establish your team. But before we do that, enjoy the view. D1 is create the team. Remember, never work alone. Depending on the problem, you need to include members that can help on the solution, and this may include members of engineering, quality, and the manufacturing departments, but also you may need to include personnel from purchasing, administration, finances, sales, etc. As a Six Sigma specialist, you need to determine who knows the process better. After you have established your team, the next step is D2, problem definition. We are in Piazza Barberini this time, one of the many piazzas in Rome. There are businesses around here, same as cafes. D2 is define the problem. This step is very important because, first of all, you need to understand what the problem is. Sometimes your customer may report something like the parts are not working, but you need better information than that. So get back to your customer and obtain as much information as possible. For example, why are the parts not working? Are they oversized? Are they undersized? Did the parts or components get damaged during transit? Or did the customer simply receive the wrong parts? And as a personal note, I have received in my career complaints for parts don't even made by my company. No. The customer contact the wrong supplier. Anyhow, once this is completed, the next step is D3, develop interim corrective actions. But for now, enjoy the video. In D3, we're going to develop and implement actions to contain the problem. For example, we may need to recall parts that were shipped to the customer and give them an RMA, Return Material Authorization. You may also need to send replacement parts or certify a stock. Sometimes we need to add a special labeling to certify shipments. And we may need to sort or rework parts or components. Remember, all rework needs to be approved by the customer. These containment actions typically need to be implemented within 24 hours. Our next step is D4, the root cause analysis. D4 is the root cause analysis. In this step, you may need to use additional Six Sigma tools such as fishbone diagram or a 5Y to analyze and determine the root cause. By the way, check my fishbone video for additional information. Also, it is very important that you perform a failure analysis. To do that, have your customer to return the suspect parts so you can perform a complete analysis. Once you have determined the root cause, you need to validate it. In other words, you need to conduct experiments to determine if you can turn the defect or condition on and off. For example, if your analysis determines that a batch of defective material is the root cause, by switching materials back and forth, you should be able to turn the defect on and off. Once your root cause has been validated, it is time to determine the corrective action. But first, let's take a break. And this morning, we are in front of the famous Spanish Steps, also known as Piazza de España. Take a look, and take a look of all of the tourists around here too. In D5, we're going to determine the corrective actions needed to eliminate the root cause. Remember, the corrective action needs to be related to the root cause. For example, if you determine that the root cause is defective material, you need to implement additional measures to verify the material before using it. Another example, if the root cause is a dimension out of a specification, you need to correct the process that is creating such a dimension and add additional checks in your control plan. And pay attention to this. If the root cause is a human error, retraining is not a solution. Your corrective action needs to eliminate the possibility of human error by implementing poke-yoke or error-proofing devices, for example. Once the corrective actions have been determined, it's time to implement them and verify them in D6. In D6, we're going to implement and verify that the corrective actions selected on the previous step are effective. Remember, there are two steps to the verification. First, you need to verify that the corrective actions has been implemented. And second, you need to verify that the corrective action is effective. In other words, you need to verify implementation and effectiveness. Once this is completed, you need to perform a look across to prevent recurrence in D7, the Pantheon. In D7, we are going to take measures to prevent recurrence of the problem. So, we are going to look at similar processes to implement the same corrective actions. For example, if we implemented a poke-yoke device to avoid human errors in a process, we need to implement similar devices in similar processes. This is also known as looking across. It is also a good practice to update your FEMA and control plan in this step. Once this is done, you are ready for the last step. Congratulate your team. The AD is congratulate your team. Recognizing the participation and accomplishments of your team members is very important. Always check with your human resources department before doing this and follow your company policies. It could be as simple as a public recognition or reporting the ADs as part of your management review. But some companies like to take the step further, and you could be posting the success of the AD in your company website or social media, such as LinkedIn. Or you could organize a celebration lunch for your team, or maybe a thank you letter and a gift card. Once again, always follow your company policies. Well, this is it for ADs. Now, let's go to the final thoughts from Ron. And here are my final thoughts. The AD methodology is one of the most powerful tools for Six Sigma specialists, and it is mandatory in the automotive industry. If used properly, an AD can help on resolving a customer complaint or any process improvement project, and not only for manufacturing processes. No. ADs are useful in any processes such as administration, finances, transportation, purchasing, etc. So learn this tool and use it wisely.
Juan-Juan, before we leave, can I ask you another question?
See,
How come you speak so many languages?
well, I have relatives in Mexico and all over the world. For example, I have a cousin in France.
Really? Can you tell me his name?
Mais oui, his name is Jack. I also have a cousin in Scotland.
No kidding. I'm afraid to ask, but what's his name?
Simple. His name is Sean.
Oh boy. Do you have cousins in Asia?
Shida, my favorite cousin is in China.
Okay, tell me about him.
His name is Juan-Juan, and he lives in the city of Wuhan. Well, that's it for today. See you next time, and until then, take care of yourself and each other.
Grazie, Juan-Juan. Ciao.
Prego, Mimi, arrivederci, ci vediamo la prossima settimana.